Welcome to TM Radio Broadcasting. My name is Frank Allen. We are live from Boston, Massachusetts. It is Friday, June 2nd, 2023. Tonight we have a very special guest, Janet Starr Hull. I'll tell you a little bit about Janet. She started out at Lake Highlands High School in Dallas in 1973, then to American Health Science University in 1994. Janet earned a Bachelor of Science in International Geography at the University of Texas at Austin in 1997. Also in 1997, she authored a book called Sweet Poison, and Monsanto has been after her ever since. This book is explaining the dangers of aspartame in the foods and drinks that we consume. After the book, she attained a master's degree in environmental science from Texas A&M University in 1982. Then a PhD in holistic nutrition from Clayton College in the year 2000. Then she was a environmental science professor at the University of North Texas. Then she put her knowledge to work. Janet went on from Starr Resources International. In 2004, the Hull, Hull, ISTIC Network, LLC. 2008, Microbe Conversions, LLC. And this is a research company. And this broadcast is an excellent opportunity for us all to speak with a real doctor, nutritionist, so many things. I'm going to let her tell you in a couple minutes. Janet would love to answer questions. Please call right now and get in the caller queue at 617-987-8603. Janet's education and qualifications make her an excellent addition to the field of experts that we have assembled over the many years. Well, I would like to, without any further ado, introduce Janet Starr Hull. Go ahead, Janet.
Well, thank you for having me, Frank. I really appreciate it. The best thing that we can do today is reach out to anyone and everyone that we can to remind them that there are healthy alternatives out there, and they're good ones, and they are backed up with science and research. And being a research scientist myself, I can never stop learning new things, and there are so many wonderful alternatives that are out there today that are helping people improve their health and wellness.
Right. It's a lot easier today, too, because if you want to know something, as long as you've got a good source, you can find it in 2 seconds on the internet, which is something we never had.
That's a very good point, because when I was writing Sweet Poison, it was back in 1991, and the computers were the big, massive CPUs, and they took up the whole room, and you had your DOS and all of that. You did not have the internet back in 91. So when I was doing the research on the dangers of aspartame, I literally had to make trips to meet with the laboratory scientists and the research scientists. I had to make phone calls, and we had to write letters back then. So that is very true. Now you can just Google it or DuckDuckGo it, and you can get your information so much quicker. But sometimes the information that you receive might not be as accurate as it was back in the olden days. I will say that. You have to really check usually when you're doing research on a topic, you should check 2 or 3 different sources and see if there's any difference between them to match them up.
Oh, exactly. Even if they're scientific white papers, you need to check them all.
Yeah.
It might be an undergraduate just trying to get a few points, you know. But I had a couple of questions for you, and I'm sure a lot of people are dying to hear these answers. And that is, what parts of your body were affected by the aspartame poisoning? Now, this is something I'm going to let you roll out for yourself because it happened to you.
Well, it was a slow drip over a year. And I had never used the diet sweeteners before. And back in the 90s, in the early 90s, you only had two choices: saccharin and aspartame, NutraSweet Equal. And NutraSweet Equal pretty much had the monopoly. The Monsanto chemical company owned the patent on both saccharin, sweet and low, and aspartame, which was the NutraSweet company. So they owned them both. And I'd never used them before. And I'd always been really healthy, really cut. I've always been an athlete, and I did a lot of environmental work, but I also worked out and did personal training, lifted weights just to stay in shape for myself. And over a year, I had a commute from the east side of Dallas up to Denton when I was teaching at the University of North Texas at the time. And if there wasn't traffic, and we're talking the 90s, so traffic wasn't anything like what you see these days, but it still took me a good hour, maybe an hour and a half, to get from one side of Dallas up to Denton to the school. So I just started dropping my money into the vending machine that was right by the exit door of my campus building where my office was, and I began drinking a diet cola for my commute home.
Uh oh.
Why I did, I don't know, because I didn't have a weight problem, and like I said, I was really cut because I was working out all the time and doing weights and stuff. So I don't know why I started getting the diet drinks, except at that time they were marketed as totally safe. So I bought into the marketing, and I thought, okay, I'm not a big sweet, sugary person, so started on the Diet Cokes. Over a year, after a year was up, one of the first things that happened, Frank, is I gained 30 pounds. So
40.
I started 30 pounds. So I
Okay.
started working out more and stressing my body all the more, but I continued to gain weight. Well, that wasn't normal. And then I started developing migraine headaches, and my contacts wouldn't fit on my eyes anymore. I couldn't wear my contacts, they just kept popping off. My retina had begun tearing from the back of my eyes. And when I went to the eye doctor, he was like, oh my goodness, the shape of my eye was changing and everything. And then my skin began to break out. I was breaking out in adult acne. So my face looked horrible. My hair was falling out. I'd brush my hair and just get a clump of hair. And I really didn't connect the dots. I didn't put two and two together. I just kept thinking, I'm busy, I'm working too much, I'm under stress, yada, yada, yada. I didn't stop the diet products.
Janet,
Well, yes.
how much did you consume in, we'll say, a day? A 2 liter bottle or?
No, not that much. I started off with just the one can. And then as I started gaining weight, I would start buying diet yogurts, diet Weight Watcher meals. I started chewing the gum because my throat was always sore and I had bad breath for the first time in my life. So I started using more as the year went on. And as my symptoms began to get worse, I began using more and more and more, especially the weight. You've got a 36-year-old female here. I was 36 at the time. The last thing I wanted to do was start gaining weight. So I started using more and more and more of it. But I only used it for the 1 year period. I realized that we're kind of segueing, getting off a little bit, but that's fine. I think the healthier you are, I think the more you work out, if you're an athlete, these food toxins, these toxic vaccines, these toxic medications are going to affect you faster because you have a higher metabolic rate. You're always going at a faster pace. You're working out. You're watching what you eat. So toxins will metabolize through your system much quicker. So I do believe that that's why it brought me down in less than a year. However, I was also adopted, so I didn't know my genetic history. I didn't know if Graves' disease, hyperthyroidism, was what the doctor diagnosed me with. I didn't know if that was inherited or not.
I have
But
that.
my blood pressure began to increase, my cholesterol increased, and my heart rate began to skip every sixth to seventh beat.
I just had, I went through a period of time where I drank a lot of Diet Coke, probably
Really?
a 2 liter bottle a day, and
Oh, wow.
I had half my thyroid taken out.
You
And
did.
right, so I am definitely going to find out what I have to do from you to get straightened out because I think I'm along the same line somewhere.
Or did they diagnose you with Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, hyper or hypo? What did they diagnose you with to remove your thyroid or half
No,
of it?
they didn't give me any explanation as to why.
It's
Um,
common.
okay, yeah, because they did say that there was no disease. It wasn't diseased or anything. It just gave out.
Wow. Well, what happened is one night in bed, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, my heart rate at rest in bed was 170 beats a minute. And being an aerobic instructor, I knew how to, take my vitals. And at 170 beats a minute, I was just watching my chest just go up and down. And I knew something was just grossly wrong. And I was just getting worse and worse as the year progressed. So I drove myself to the emergency room and they immediately hooked me up to EKGs, EEGs, IVs, all the V's. They hooked me up to everything. And they didn't know what was causing this. They didn't know what was wrong with me and other than textbook symptoms matching textbook diseases. So the doctor diagnosed me with hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease, and wanted to irradiate my thyroid. My heart rate was so high, my cholesterol and blood pressure were so high. He wanted to put me on heart medication. And I, being the environmental scientist that I was, I said, okay, well, so what is the toxin here? What made me sick? He glazed over like a deer in the headlights and he goes, we don't have any idea what's caused this, but we know we can do this, this, and this to fix you up and make you better than normal. And I'm like, no, no. I want to figure out what in the heck is causing this because I've never been ill, really, never been ill my whole life. And I wasn't going to make a decision until I knew what was going on. I just wasn't going to do it. So he
Jen,
reluctantly checked me out of the hospital after 3 days. And I went home with the goal of figuring out what made me ill. And I found it.
Janet, how long did it take you? You said it took you, I believe, a month or so to get this out of your system. Now, what did you use? Did you use this French green clay?
What I did, I didn't use the French green clay because I didn't know about it yet, but I did do a detox program. I went to the owner of the Plaza Health Food store back in the day. He inherited the store from his parents. It was the first health food store in Dallas, and it was in Highland Park. And Steve Fugue was his name, and he turned out to be my mentor and I his protege. Steve was a geologist just like I. And so he immediately connected. We just connected. And so he did a hair analysis on me. He's the one that taught me about the hair analyses. So he did a hair analysis to figure out what in the world was causing this, because our goal was to find what was causing it. Nothing showed up in the hair analysis, nothing. And then I was doing a lot of public speaking because I was a professor at the time. And so I would always speak. And so I ran into a woman at one of the speeches that I was giving to a group, and I befriended her. She befriended me. And by serendipity, I told her I apologized for how I looked and felt, because it was just embarrassing. And she said, well, I've got a question to ask you. Have you been using aspartame? Have you been drinking diet drinks and using NutraSweet products? And I said, yes, I started doing that over the year. She said, I want you to stop that right away. She gave me the information because her husband had just died of a brain tumor. And she discovered that aspartame, Dr. John Olney from Washington School of Medicine proved that aspartame ate holes in the brains of his laboratory mice.
God.
So she was pursuing a lawsuit because she believed, because her husband was addicted to the Diet Cokes. So I started digging in and doing my research on aspartame. She and I began working together. I'm still working with Dr. Fugue, Steve Fugue, detoxing. So I detoxed. I restored the depleted nutrients that the hair analysis showed that the aspartame had depleted in my body. And interestingly, those were my hormone nutrients and my blood sugar nutrients. Surprise, surprise, right? Blood sugar,
yeah,
diet drink.
yeah.
I restored those. I never took the medication my doctor gave me, but I didn't tell him. And I went in weekly to the doctor for a blood test to check my T3 and my T4 thyroid levels. Week by week, I was getting better and better and better. And the doctor, after 6 weeks, I was back to normal. After 6 weeks, I was back to normal. So I did detox, but it was not my French green clay detox. I discovered that after I had gotten sick. But I did use clay. It just wasn't the French green clay, which I think is the finest on the planet. And so after 6 weeks, I hadn't been on my medication. I was back to normal thyroid levels. And I went in to my doctor to share with him what I had discovered. And I thought he would have been excited about it. Instead, I thought he was going to kill me. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not the doctor I am. You can't cure Graves' disease. It'll come back. You don't. Oh.
They don't like that, Shannon.
No.
They don't like you being the doctor. They want to be the doctor.
Right.
You have to be
Exactly.
the patient.
He had never heard of aspartame. He was totally clueless about what I was talking about as far as detoxing and taking vitamins. Now, keep in mind, this was 91. I think you might have more savvy doctors out there today that are a little bit more into holistic medicine than back in the 90s. But I just very kindly swept all the vitamins that I'd set out on his desk and put them back in my satchel and stood up and I said, I want to thank you for everything you've done. Thank you very much. And I said goodbye. And that was that. That was that.
Wow. That's unreal. Oh, I just wanted to remind the listening audience that you can call 617-987-8603 to speak with Janet. And once again, that is 617-987-8603. Janet's waiting for your call. Okay, go ahead, Janet.
Well, I'll tell you. So what I did after that, I just felt like I had discovered just, all of the eggs for the Easter basket. I was so excited. And I kept working with Mary Stoddard more, and we started speaking about it, and I started telling my story, and we started meeting more and more people that were having reactions to aspartame, and they had no clue. And so we enlightened them. And so I decided that I would write a book about it, because I was a professor, a college professor, and that's what professors do. So I wrote my book, Sweet Poison, and I had a hard time getting it published. Everybody was really afraid of Monsanto. And Coca-Cola and Pepsi and,
Oh
all
boy,
of the companies.
I
Yeah,
bet. I
yeah.
bet. God.
So I New Horizon Press picked it up out of New York, and she was wonderful. She did a beautiful job on the book. The book went, she stopped print after 27 years that book had been on the market. She pulled it during COVID. But you and I were talking before the show. I've written another book, and I need to just sit down and find the time to get it queried, try to get it out there. It's called The Sweetener Wars. It is the literal history of the entire diet sweetener industry, from saccharin to aspartame to sucralose, Splenda. I wrote a book on that as well, to stevia. I know all of the researchers, all of the people that brought stevia in originally back in the 80s. I just have a wonderful history of being in the diet industry, fighting the dangers of the diet sweeteners since 1991. So I've got an awful lot of data, a lot of Senate documents, a lot of Senate hearings, all of the research. I've met the research scientists. It's just been quite a roller coaster. But I will tell you, the diet sweeteners are all still on the market. People are still using them. They're putting them in products not labeled sugar free. They are affecting children. They are affecting the elderly. They are affecting pregnancy. Their dangers have not gone away. They have not gone away, and they've been there from day one. And sadly, our protective government agencies know all about these dangers, and they allow them to be marketed anyway. It's just the big money, big money.
Okay, I understand. Okay, we have a caller from Montreal, Quebec. Hold on. Good evening, caller. This is
Hi.
TM Broadcasting. Go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Oh, good. Good. Okay. Yes, I have a question for. It's very interesting about sweeteners. Interested in any side effects about stevia. All that I read before in the 90s and later was about that it affects hormones in large doses.
Frank,
And
I'm not hearing the caller.
You can't. Oh, okay,
I
hold on, hold on, hold
okay.
on.
So I'm just curious about
Okay.
Stevia.
Okay, hold on one second.
Thank you.
Okay, you should be able to hear now. Go ahead.
Hi.
You're gonna have to repeat yourself.
Hi. Got it.
I will.
Gotcha.
Oh, you got my question?
No, she didn't get your
No.
question. You're gonna have to
Okay.
repeat it. She
Okay.
couldn't hear you.
Sorry, because you said got it. So, okay. I'm curious about what you know about stevia. The only thing I've read before I started to take it to use it was that it affects the hormones in large doses, and it was banned in the U.S. for a long time because of that. And is that still the case? I was always told that it's pretty safe, and I'm using it quite liberally and trying to, you know, but less and less these days because I'm fasting, and they say not to have any sweeteners at all in your drinks during the fast, so intermittent fasting. Anyway, so I wanted to know what you thought about that stevia, please.
It's a great question. And I will tell you, I guess, firstly, we don't want to use anything, we don't want to overuse anything. So everything in moderation. So if you use the stevia in moderation, even with intermittent fasting, you will be fine. Stevia, what came out about stevia has come out sporadically. It came out big time when they were trying to bring stevia into the United States in the 1980s. And Oscar Rhodes is the one that brought it in originally in Arlington, Texas. And I know Oscar, and I remember when he was doing that in the 90s when he had his warehouse. They came out with big time propaganda at that time to keep it off the market, and they succeeded. They kept it off the market. Now they're starting it up again, and I've noticed that also, that they've started up with some negative publicity and some negative studies. It's propaganda. It's propaganda. Stevia has been used for 1,500 years in Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile, Ecuador, in South America.
Janet?
And yes.
Can you give us the composition of stevia?
Stevia is just like basil or oregano. It is literally the leaf of a native herb. Literally.
Okay.
It has nothing except ground. It's just like basil or stevia. I mean, basil or oregano. And you don't want to overuse basil or oregano, so you don't want to overuse your stevia. It's very potent, so a little bit goes a very long way. So they're not going to make as much money off of the stevia because you don't need to use as much. Stevia is used in South America, like I said, for 1,500 years. They've used it. They use it to treat diabetes. They use it for gum disease. So the natives would just pick it off of the stevia plant, chew it, and it was good for their gums and their teeth. Not one single negative adverse health effect had ever been recorded in 1,500 years. So when it comes onto the market as competition, then you start seeing the propaganda that too much is going to affect your hormones. I don't even pay attention to those research studies. I look at them, I look to see where they're from, and I just shelve them. They're not valid in my opinion, not at all. So if you use it in moderation, even with the intermittent fasting, you're okay, because it's just like chewing basil or oregano, totally 100% natural. Okay. But use the Stevia company. The Stevia company in Washington. Don't use the products that are a little bit stevia and a whole bunch of other stuff. I won't use the company name because I don't want to get in trouble, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Okay, so it's often erythritol and stevia. So
erythritol is what you're using?
Yeah.
Not stevia?
It's like if they make it into like if they process it a bit, they'll add erythritol. Like if it's a drops or
gotcha. Gotcha.
Or I've seen I was told not to have it if it's with maltodextrin, which is like, they have these packets, of stevia mixed with maltodextrin. It's stevia in the raw, by the way. That's the one that has the maltodextrin. And there's another one, Herbal Select. And it's funny, Herbal Select. You think that like maltodextrin raises blood sugar. Anyway, so erythritol.
Look up.
Talk about that.
Look up the Stevia company. It's in Washington State. Stevia.
Okay,
they're pure.
That's what I wanted you to do, Janet, to make sure you got that out there so that people do not get the same component with something else in it.
Exactly, because then you're going to blame the stevia, and it's got all this other junk in it. And if I have the time, Frank, I'd love to talk about the erythritol and the sugar alcohols.
You do.
Those are not chemically made in the laboratory, as far as like aspartame or sucralose or acesulfame K. Those are laboratory concoctions. But the sugar alcohols, sorbitol, maltitol, mannitol, erythritol, those are extracted from fruits and from plants, and they're extracted in the laboratory and put into an isolated form. So they're not natural any longer. A good rule of thumb is whatever you eat and drink, try to eat and drink what's been touched the least by people. Farm to plate, garden to plate, the best you can. What they've done is they've extracted the sugar from the fruits and the vegetables, and then they've boiled them and added this and that and cooked them and done this and that. They're not toxic as far as chemicals go, but most people will get stomach cramping, gas, and diarrhea from consuming too much sugar alcohol.
Well, thank you
So
so
if
much
you're
for
chewing
your
gum with
response to them.
sorbitol, it's probably going to give you a tummy ache and you're going to run to the bathroom. And that's why. Yeah.
Xylitol.
Yep.
It's in
Xylitol.
Toothpaste, and I was told it was from the birch tree. Is that right? Xylitol.
The xylitol is a sugar alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
so
a sugar alcohol. Any of the talls. Yeah.
Not at all. Then you don't have it at all.
Yeah. Right. So you're going to want to avoid that. You're going to want to avoid all of those. And that's, yeah. Now that might mess with your hormones, but not the stevia.
Okay. That's probably why they came up with that. There's always mixing
Probably.
in things that, make it. Thank you so much.
Well, I tell you, you're really talking about some really great things. That's why they slapped saccharin with the cancer warning. Saccharin was being tested again by the Monsanto chemical company at the time they were going to launch NutraSweet. They combined saccharin with cyclamate. And the cyclamate was what caused the cancer, not the saccharin. But they labeled the saccharin and then just ignored the cyclamate. They took that off the market. So that is exactly what you're saying. They're mixing them with other stuff. So how do you know which one causes your problem? Yeah, so the stevia is fine. And stay away from the talls, the sugar talls. Go ahead.
I'm amazed. Please, how can saccharin be okay? Is it a natural? Is it just like stevia and that it's a natural thing?
It used to be. It used to be.
Blowing me away. Oh.
When they came out with the story that saccharin was discovered in a laboratory from coal tar, I went, bunk. That's a bunch of BS. When my dad was in India during World War II in the 40s, the early 40s, they would ship saccharin pellets to them in India from China. And they were like, what is this? And they said, well, this is an herb from China, and it's sweet. And they make it. They started making saccharin in China during World War II. It doesn't come from coal tar. Saccharin used to be natural. It used to be. It's not anymore. It's not natural anymore. It's man-made. However, saccharin's never caused cancer, and as far as we know, it's never caused an adverse health effect either. It's the best thing for a diabetic to use. If you have to use an artificial sweetener when you're out eating and you've got the pink, blue, yellow, pick the pink. You'll be perfectly fine. Isn't that interesting?
Okay.
All this stuff.
Yes, it is.
We never knew.
Let's talk about sucralose, because what I read was it's chlorinated sugar. Is that correct?
That is correct. I wrote the book on sucralose, and I have actually in my book, Splenda, Is It Sweet or Not? I've got the formula.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay, so
it's 75% chlorine. 75% chlorine.
Okay.
So it's going to affect your lungs, your liver, your skin, your kidneys, and your bladder. It's just like drinking from your swimming pool.
Oh, where do I sign?
Yeah, right.
Swimming pool.
Yeah.
Janet, how do they get away with putting these things on the market? How do they get away with it?
Money.
How do they get
Money.
by FDA? I mean,
the lobbyists have bought them off for a very, very, very long time. I think the awakening to what's going on now because of the coof, because of COVID, has awakened many people to where, really? But this has been going on for probably, well, since World War II. So I'm going to say a good 70 years, maybe 100 years this has been going on. Absolutely, it's been going on. They've been buying off, the lobbyists have been buying off the politicians. They've been buying off the FDA. They've been buying off the CDC. Everybody's getting money under the table. And this is what I write about in Sweet Poison. They approved NutraSweet for the second time. The first time the FDA approved it, the laboratory scientists that had the holes in the brains of their laboratory animals, dead fetuses, cleft palates and lower IQs in their fetuses. They went to the Senate and they said, no, 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 no. And they worked with the Senate and they rescinded the very first FDA approval. It took them another 10 years to figure out how to buy off everybody. And when Reagan came into office, during that flip, because that was such a big presidential shakeup, right? When Reagan came in, Alfred Hull Hayes, the commissioner of the FDA, approved NutraSweet overnight with no one else's knowledge. He got paid off. So it was a Dick Cheney thing. It was corruption. It was corruption. Yep. So it's been going on a long time, guys. A long time.
What's interesting about I'm in Canada, so they don't have the actual NutraSweet. They have acesulfame potassium that instead, like
acesulfame K. Yes.
Okay,
it's a carcinogen. It's been proven in laboratory causes cancer. Yep.
Oh, same thing.
Yep.
Okay. Because they said it's less toxic, and the Canada accepted that instead of NutraSweet.
Well, I have a chapter in Sweet Poison called "Prioritize Your Poisons." I mean, everything right now is toxic and unhealthy, so you kind of have to prioritize which ones are going to kill you fastest. So that's what your Canadian government is telling you. This one won't harm you as quickly as this one will. No, ACE-K is also a carcinogen, but it's found in gums, all kinds of products out there. Yeah, I would avoid everything but saccharin and stevia. Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Are you going to say nice things about sugar now, like brown sugar and all that?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, my ranch in South Texas is across the street from the sugarcane fields. I watch them process natural sugar cane. Pure cane sugar, unprocessed sugar, is natural, totally natural. And again, if you eat it in moderation, even if you have diabetes, if you have a small amount of a complex, pure sugar, your body is going to burn that up and use it for energy. So that is definitely the most natural and definitely the best. Pure cane sugar. You bet.
And coconut sugar? What about coconut sugar? It's like from the coconut plant.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And there's yacon syrup.
Correct. If you would feed it to your animals, if it's okay, if your animals get into it and eat it, if it's not going to harm them, it will not harm you. That's a good rule of thumb. So if it is safe for your animals, I'm not saying it's healthy, they may gain weight, but if it's safe for your animals, it is safe for you. That's a good rule of thumb right there. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've learned a lot so far, and in just a little while, we've learned so much. And thank you, Montreal.
Yes, thank you. Nice talking with you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye now.
I know, Frank. There's a whole world out there. I mean, this is there, and it's been there. It's been hidden from the public. I've done my best to be persistent with keeping it out there, but it's just information that I suppose nowadays they would have me taken down with disinformation.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Yeah. All of this is true. It's all supported with research, case histories, and government hearings. In Sweet Poison, I have the Senate hearings printed in the back of the book. The Senate did hear this. They did vote on it. On banning it or not.
It's very interesting. They created something, aspartame, that actually makes you gain weight, which makes you buy more of it, which makes you sick. Well, that's really something, I'll tell you.
And then the pharmaceutical companies are the ones that own all of these food additives, vaccines. They own the food additives again, like the artificial sweeteners, and they own the medications prescribed for the symptoms that the products, the food additives they own, cause. So they've got you coming and going. They're making
Wow.
money off of you everywhere.
Okay, Janet, can you give our listening audience a look at how you felt when you had stopped the disease that was trying to take your life?
Very empowered, because facing death, because Frank, my doctor, told me, if you don't allow me to remove your thyroid and get you on heart medication and control all of the things that were wrong with me, he said, but your hyperthyroidism, he said, you're going to die. You can't cure it. It will kill you. And so I faced death. So after I realized that I had found, and to me, it wasn't anything that unusual in the respect I did this all the time in the environment. If there was a toxic spill in the environment, I was a hazardous waste and emergency responder. So we would get out there and identify the toxin, stop it from spreading, remove it, restore the environment to where it was originally, and boom, bang, we're done. So that's what I did with my body. That's what I do to help people today. And so to me, it was like, wow, I found it. And then when I wrote Sweet Poison, Frank, I thought I was going to change the world. I thought everybody's going to go, oh my gosh, look what she discovered about NutraSweet. We'll take it off the market. It's unhealthy. It's killing people. No, I entered a world of politics, the politics of medicine. And I've been in that world for 30 years now.
You
So it
went
made me,
you entered the world of big pharma. I think that's what you
yes,
wanted.
yeah, yeah. I'm definitely not on their employee of the month list. I'll put it that way. So I felt empowered. I felt strong because I had stood up to death and I beat it. I didn't die.
You
I
sure
was
did.
healthy again, started losing weight. I grew my hair back. My skin cleared up. My, believe it or not, Frank, my retina healed in both of my eyes.
It did.
My retina, it sealed itself. Yes, it sealed itself. Once I got the formaldehyde from the aspartame out of my system, it stopped destroying my tissues of my organs. My liver returned to normal liver enzymes. I mean, I just went back to normal. I just went back to normal. Everything went back to normal. So I wrote my book, and I really thought I was going to change the world. I didn't change the world, but I've been helping people. So it feels like my purpose. It feels like what I'm here to do.
If you can
Yeah.
awaken one person, they will tell someone. They will tell
Hmm.
someone else.
Yeah.
It'll get passed on.
Pay it forward, right? Pay it
That's
forward.
right.
Exactly. So knowing that I've helped people just by offering the information to them, the one thing I will say, you can tell somebody that it's toxic, you can tell somebody that it's going to harm their health, but as we say in Texas, you can take a horse to water, but you can't